Now that we have learned about a learning platform, have you ever wondered how to gauge how AI mature we are? Interesting, right? Let me welcome Dr. Andreas Liebel, Managing Director Unternehmertum Applied AI, to take us all into this exciting space and show what AI readiness means.
Thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm really happy to be here at this conference. My name is Andreas Liebel, and I will talk about how to advance in AI with some examples of the Applied AI Maturity Assessment as well as the KI Transfer Plus program. So if we talk about AI, what you have to have in mind is that AI is not something that you just implement, it's a journey of your organization. And most of these organizations are actually just starting. So what we see is actually 5 different steps of AI maturity levels. So those companies that did not start, that really risk losing their competitiveness. Then the ones who just starting and are experimenting with the first prototypes. So they actually face the challenge of being stuck at that POC level. Then there are practitioners that have the first or the second AI application implemented, with the first value being created, but that's really not sustainable and cost efficient. The 4th step is being a professional. That means you have AI broadly embedded in the organization, you use it at scale reliably, and there you actually start creating value. And then you have the shaper, that's really the ones where the organizational DNA is transformed, that reshape the whole markets and which we would call AI first companies. So it's really about getting to these higher levels of AI maturity if you want to create value with AI. And now the thing is that as most companies are at these very first levels and you want to become to these like higher levels, the question is actually how you get there. And while most of also the public programs that are out there really help you to get started with AI to do the one or the other experiment, the issue is what are also support systems that help you to get from these lower levels to these higher levels of AI maturity. And that's actually what we are doing at Applied AI. So we focus in Europe on getting you to these higher levels of AI maturity with co-creation, with collaboration between different organizations. And that's where we actually created one of the largest ecosystems in Europe in applying AI to become these professional and shaper levels. How do we do that? We do that in 2 ways. So one is a structural perspective. What we call the AI strategy house. There's also some white papers from our side where you can, if you want, you can read a little bit more about that. But how we structure AI is that it starts really from the ambition. So from your top management, what is your future competitive advantage? What are the fields of action? Is it more on the process side, more on the product side? It's really also about the commitment of your leadership team of where you want to be at the end of your AI journey. And there are different targets and goals, so that's totally fine, but it's really about how you get there and how committed is the organization of getting there. Then it's about the AI use cases. It really starts in the discovery and the specification of AI use cases. Then the decision of what you're really doing yourself and where you buy technologies and applications from partners, from third-party providers. Then it's about the portfolio management. If you have 10, 20, 50, 100 use cases applied, how do you manage the set of AI use cases in your organization? The third layer is the enabling factor. So it's about the organizational setup. What's the governance structure? What's the liability of the ones who are producing AI systems? Where is it located? Is it in the CIO department? Is it in the research? Is it in the operations? So it's really how you set up AI within your organization. Then it's about expertise, how you create the knowledge and the expertise in your existing workforce, starting from the top management to the domain experts, but also how are you able to hire and maintain talent, retain talent in your organization. Then it's about data and technology. So where does the data come from? How you can make sure that the data is of highest quality, and what is the technology you're using in terms of the hardware and software infrastructure for building AI systems. And then it's about culture and ecosystem, which from our perspective is also really important, especially if you get to higher levels of AI maturity. People need to understand and be willing willing to use these AI applications and to really work with these types of applications. And that's really a challenge for many organizations that come to these higher levels of AI maturity. And then it's about the ecosystem. So who are your sparring partners for working on AI? It's typically not you as an organization, but it's with a set of companies and with a set of research partners together. And the last layer is about the execution. So how do you get from these very early stages? How do you do research and exploration? How do you then do the development and the validation of the AI tools, as well as the operationalization and the maintenance of the AI tools? So that's the structural perspective. If you want to be successful, you need to look at all these different aspects of applying AI to your organization. And then you have the dynamic perspective, which is the AI journey. And in all those different aspects of the structural perspective, you will face different challenges depending on the level of maturity where you are. And the question now is, how do you get from these lower levels of AI maturity in the larger levels of AI maturity in all those different aspects of the overall AI strategy house? And that's actually where we come in then with our AI maturity assessment and help these organizations to get there. Why? Because it's really important that you don't focus on just one of these aspects and make that really, really sophisticated while neglecting the others. It's what we see as really successful is that you as an organization develop as a whole to getting more and more mature on your AI journey. And therefore you need to consider the topic of talent, the topic of culture, the vision and the strategy if you want to really become professional in using AI technology. And I talked a little bit about this AI maturity assessment. So what is it really? It's really a kind of our backbone, our basic structure at appliedAI. So what you've seen, you also can download that on our website for free, is this AI journey landscape and a white paper behind it where we say, what are actually all these challenges along that AI journey? What we do now with our partners at appliedAI is really focus on some of those challenges and solve those where there's not really good best practices out there. Then you have the maturity workshop and the tool. That means how to then, if you know where you are, how you define the next steps, how you define the ambition of where you want to be in maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years, and how kind of what are the next steps to really getting there. Then you have the AI maturity questionnaire and the survey tool. So it's really about self-assessing your organization. We published that in Germany with the BDI and the Bitkom together, but it's also available across Europe where you really can understand what the level of AI maturity you have as an organization. And then there's the benchmarking database. So you also know where others are, how the market developed compared to yourself. So you really can see what's your level compared to maybe peers in your country or in other countries. How we do it, we actually developed that as a joint assessment platform, European-wide. There are different landing pages by national hosts. For example, in Sweden, you have the one from AI Sweden, where you can go to and you can directly go to the maturity assessment. So you as a company can just use these tools, do it yourself. You get a a recommendation where you are, what could be the potential next steps, and what are the offerings also from a national perspective in Germany. For example, the platform Lernende Systeme, the KI Campus, other resources that can help you with mastering, obviously also some of our offerings of appliedAI. And then you can also work with trusted partners in doing the maturity assessment that actually really know how to apply the methodology, but actually everyone else is also invited to use this tool to really work with you as an organization to get there. And what we've seen is that this is really successful because it helps you to understand where you are, and it helps you to break down this huge topic of AI into manageable steps that help you to really advance in the AI journey. So how do we do that? We actually, well, our mission, our vision is to really shape Europe's innovative power in AI, and we do that by 5 different pillars. So one is really being a sparring partner, the trusted partner for your AI journey. Then we do this knowledge exchange and creation with roundtables, with peer discussions, with working groups on topics, different events, and so on. Then we connect the organizations with the startups and the tech providers, try to, well, actually find these use cases and connect you with the correct partners. We do AI trainings from top management to the domain experts in all different fields of AI. And we also really help the AI engineers in your organizations to advance by providing them a set of very technical trainings that help them to stay really state of the art. So that's what we do. And now if we talk about SMEs, especially, this needs to be packaged in a targeted program. And kind of from a global perspective, there's one other country that's doing this really well, which is Singapore in the 100 Experiments program at AI Singapore. They really also package this, and that's exactly what we are doing there in Germany as well with a program called KI Transfer Plus. Why? Because there are specific challenges for SMEs. No clear AI vision, really a shortage of professionals to drive AI in the enterprise, the lack of connect to the best practices and the networks and the AI centers, and really the issue of scaling deployment of AI. So what we want to do there is to develop that clearly defined AI vision, to build up internal competence by a kind of 6-month program of teaching the employees of the organization, by network of transfer of knowledge, by exchanges with other companies, and independent examinations of their AI use cases. We brought this into this 9-month program. We do that not only at appliedAI, but also with other partners like the Regensburg Center of Artificial Intelligence in these 3 pillars of this AI curriculum, the development of the vision and the organizational setup, as well as the developing and implementing a specific AI use cases with the companies, and potentially also with third-party providers. And the idea is really to get these organizations at least to this practitioner level, but with the potential and the right setting also to become professional or even shaper level. And that program, as a kind of a really structured approach to getting there, is built on the maturity assessment, is built on the structural perspective of all these different components of what we're doing. It is now highly successful actually in getting these companies up to that level. So if we, again, to summarize it, if we look at what's actually necessary to help organizations to get from these lower levels to these higher levels, it's a really structured approach of looking all the different components. It's a means to really identify where you are as an organization. And it's then a program that systematically gets you from the start to whatever target you have in your country, in your organizations, and that really support you to getting there.
Thank you, Andreas. That was truly amazing.